Hello, and welcome to Slow Night, Ancient Tales. Tonight's story comes from Joseon-era Hanyang, the dark alleys of the old capital at night, and a strange custom hidden within them. It follows one bewildering night in the life of a country scholar who lost his way, and the different fates that awaited others who shared his same misfortune. By day, Hanyang bustled with 100,000 people, but by night the city fell into a silence as deep as a tomb. Its narrow, winding alleys were hard enough to navigate in daylight. After dark, it was easy to lose all sense of direction. One night, a scholar who had traveled from the countryside to sit for the state examination found himself unable to locate his lodgings, wandering lost through the maze of alleys. Past midnight, still walking in circles, he muttered to himself, "I must have been bewitched by some fox spirit." Just then, several figures suddenly rushed at him. In an instant, he was bound and stuffed into a waiting sack. Without a single word spoken, the men hoisted him up and carried him off into the night. After what felt like a long journey, they arrived somewhere, pulled him from the sack, and untied his bindings. They washed him clean, dressed him in fine silk robes, fitted him with an official's cap and belt, and led him to a room. Inside, an elaborate wedding feast had been laid out. But strangely, an iron lattice screen stood between the scholar and the bride. A beautifully dressed young woman sat quietly on the other side of it. No matter what he said, she gave no reply. Only once a faint smile crossed her lips. As dawn approached, the men returned, bound him once more, and stuffed him back into the sack. After another long journey, he found himself set down near a river. The men tied a heavy stone to the base of the sack and carried him onto a boat, rowing out toward the middle of the water. Only then did the scholar understand what was about to happen. But in the stillness of that early morning river, there was no one to hear his cries. This was the fate of countless nameless country scholars, lost to history. Behind it lay a particular custom of the time. Among noble families, if a fortune-teller declared that a daughter was destined to become a widow while still young, her family would sometimes go to extraordinary lengths to spare her a lifetime of loneliness by making her a widow artificially, right away. Since the law of the time strictly forbade women from remarrying, families reasoned it was better to hold a formal wedding and immediately lose the husband, rather than have their daughter endure decades of solitary widowhood later in life. And so servants would seek out a country scholar wandering lost in the night, seize him, carry out this strange ceremony, and then, before the next dawn, drown him in the river. Of course, other versions of this story survive as well. In one account, a bride secretly passed her ornamental dagger to the scholar, allowing him to cut his way out of the sack before it could be thrown into the river. The two had apparently arranged this in advance, and together they fled far away, living out a long and happy life as husband and wife. In another tale, a nobleman's daughter, disapproving of her father's cruel scheme and genuinely drawn to the scholar, secretly called him down from behind the iron screen and shared a true wedding night with him. The next morning, she openly declared what had happened, and her father, left with no choice, ultimately gave his blessing. Yet another daughter believed that even a single night spent behind the lattice screen was enough to bind her as a wife, and so she wore mourning white for the rest of her days, honoring a marriage that had lasted only one night. There is also the story of a gentle woman who, having never so much as spoken to or touched the man on the other side of the screen, fell ill from longing for him and passed away. And then there is the tale of a clever young woman who secretly learned the examination topic from her father, who served as the chief examiner, and passed it along to the scholar, along with a chance to escape. The scholar went on to pass the examination with distinction, and later married her properly, the two living out a happy life together. That's all for tonight's story. The same strange night of fate led some toward sorrowful endings, and others toward unexpected happiness. It's the kind of story that leaves much to reflect on. These events belong to a distant past, but the hearts of the people within them were, perhaps, not so different from our own. Set down whatever weighs on you tonight and walk gently into sleep. Have a warm night. Sleep well.